A lot of people are discussing Bernie Sanders' campaign for president, and they talk about socialism because Bernie Sanders from Vermont, the senator from Vermont, he has social, when you say socialism, there's a lot of meanings to it, and it has come to have a negative meaning in the United States of something like the government. The government does everything, the people don't do anything. But what does it really mean? I mean, man is social, so the form of his existence is a society. A society consists of different groups of people, different identities, different races, different religious creeds, all these different things. But when these things were, I tend to go back to Karl Marx's idea of socialism, which was kind of his idea was that the people needed sociality, needed to be part of their life. Like they needed to have some kind of positive and affirmative interactions with other people, and so they needed to be social. See, a society can have the form of social, we can say it's socialistic in America, and then we can have an educational system where the taxpayers pay for the education for all, and the government kind of establishes it and decides what the curriculum is. But Marx would have said that's not socialism, because that still organizes the people in the educational system in a certain way, which he said socialism could only happen if everybody in society was educated as a kind of an expert in all areas of society, so then people could work together to produce what has been produced by others. So see, in a factory, for instance, today, unless you can do all the jobs of the factory, you can't take over the means of production. But for Marx, that was essential so that the people could live a social form of existence. So for Marx, it meant people working to produce the form of life that they had and doing everything that there is to do. In our time, technology today is so complex that certain people can't do it. If you went to Walmart, and most of the people at Walmart could do all the jobs at Walmart, but most of the people in production and in scientific industries like the pharmaceutical industry today, that's not realistic to think that all of them can do the jobs of everyone else. So the closest thing, the reason for that for Marx, in his idea, socialism was what came after the people dispossessed those few owners of all the wealth that they had. Maybe they say the 1/10 of 1% today. So after those people give all their stuff to everybody and say, hey, here's all our stuff, you can have it, you can do what you want with it now. And you can just imagine the chaos nobody could do anything with it. Because it's a highly specialized form of societal existence today, where you're not going to know about propane and propane accessories. You're not going to know Hank Hill's job, or you're not going to know, how to work on refrigerant, or you're not going to know how to, because that's a different job. So everybody having different jobs in a way prevents that transition from the type of existence we have today, where there are the owners, and even the owners don't know. I can't take the richest 25 men in the world don't know how to go to Merck tonight and do the job that pharmaceutical researchers do. You see, they couldn't do that. They know that this is a scientific society. They may have most of the stock in a company like that, but they can't do that job. See, even the form of society, Marx would have told them, the form of society that they've created doesn't even allow them to have a socialized existence. But a socialized existence, as Marx talks about it, that happens before the revolution, while the people are educated to all the production work in the society. And this was imagined by Marx back in the 19th century, when people were the technical aspects of society were not as intense as they are today. So science hadn't yet made the society such that you couldn't know everybody's job. So today when somebody talks about socialism, what they would really be meaning, I think, or what they're intending, not what they, strictly speaking, there's a whole tradition of socialism and different thinkers that have had different conceptions of it. It usually involves something like a revolutionary change of society where people had greater power and where people participated more and where people had a greater unity among themselves. So it really has to do with that. Unity and cooperation among people and tolerance among people to build the form of existence that they have. When I talk about socialism, it doesn't have much to do anymore with the way Marx conceived of it, because I just don't think we live in that type of society anymore. But if people were to say, like, we want to live socialism as originally conceived, then you'd have to go back to a society that was simple enough for your group. Let's say your group is 20 people. You'd have to go back to a form of life that is primitive enough, or that goes back before there were differences in jobs and differences in technical knowledge and so on, and you'd have to be able to build a form of life that at least everybody could have some knowledge of. See, you'd have to be living in a place where you had enough knowledge to build it up by yourself and to maintain it by yourself. You'd have to have enough knowledge where if you were supplying the food that you eat by gardening in that community, then you'd have to know what it takes to be a gardener. Like my parents, you'd have to know, when my parents lived on a farm, both of them lived on a farm, and when it came time to have a cow slaughtered, they had to send that to market. See, that was a specialized job. They could butcher a chicken, but they couldn't actually, take care of their cattle. They had to send their cattle out and have that done. So when people imagine today that they might want to return to a more social existence, what you really mean is that you're bringing together a group of people that pledge to work to produce the life of each of the persons. So you're not really saying today that you could do everything, like that you could be a welder, you could be a car mechanic, you could be someone who builds computers, but you could have, as part of your community, you could have all those kinds of things, and then part of the social activity of the group of people would be sharing one set of skills with another person, so that over time, the 20 people that you bring together, or 20 or 15, over time they learn more and more skills in more and more elements of the society. Now you see why today that would be prevented, typically, because there's colleges that provide that kind of knowledge to people today. So there would be some opposition to that by the people who provide that training for other people. And that's why today, like, people don't get off work, and as in Marx's time, they don't go to a meeting where all the workers meet, and one worker says to another, I'm going to teach you the job of Freemason. Karl Marx himself was a Freemason, I bet. I put my money on it that he was a Freemason of a very high order, and that he was skilled at his craft. So he could teach other people about the different aspects of the society. But socialism just means that if you have a society and you took 20 of your people, 10 of the people build crafts. Some of them make T-shirts with, screen prints. Some of them weave together clothing, and they make clothing out of hemp or something like that. Maybe others of them build, they take antique cars, and they put antique cars back together and then they sell those antique cars to people who want them. Like that could be part. Like there could be 5 guys in the commune that actually take and buy antique cars, and then they refurbish them together, and then they sell it, and then they put the money in the commune. So the communist socialism just means that you're pitching in with all the others to really work together to learn the skills that can sustain your community. And that's really what it is. This aspect of it, of there being some, like, they don't really want you to know too much around here. You have to get the skills because, you can see why, because there's a lot of knowledge to gain. You can't, let's say you were the nurse in the commune. Now, you couldn't know all that stuff unless you could know it all. I mean, you could know almost everything you needed to know if you got books, and if you studied, and if you learned, and if you talked to other nurses. You could be a doctor if you talked and studied and learned. But see, over here, you're going to get, if you go to medical school over at the Rockford, what's the name of that medical school? There's a medical school in Rockford on Park Avenue. And if you go to that medical school, see, it's going to be certified and you're going to be tested for having that knowledge. But if you're part of a commune and you're kind of like a medicine man, you might not have very much knowledge. You might just be somebody who can help someone with a bellyache, or you might be able to help someone. You might be able to say, well, see, it's a sharing of knowledge. That's what socialism is, the sharing of knowledge with others to make them more powerful. When I say the Plumpfinch has a relationship with Madison in my novel, it means the two of them are friends in a way that they encourage and bring out in each other the maximization of skill and talent. That's socialism. See, because that's socializing and forming a society and community. When I say the debutante and I have that friendship in the novel, I am taking something from what I have with Larita as a friend, and I'm putting it in the mix so that I'm imagining the kind of relationship I have with the debutante is a bit like that it has that social form, that I'm helping her appreciate art, which she may already appreciate, but we're learning about art together so we can start a little art gallery as part of our commune. That's socialism, because then the people of the commune actually partake of the art, look at the art, appreciate the art, and maybe we sell the art to the community. Maybe sometimes people come into the community and they look at our art and they buy her paintings. See, that's socialism, because you're interacting with the individual and building up their skills. This is kind of the socialist conception, that you're helping other people out, that you're unifying talents, and that you built them one. But the one thing that has to be part of any acceptable definition, I think, is that the goal is to share talents so that you can reproduce your form of life with those other people in cooperation, usually under some guidance that unites you, like the Pythagoreans used to have. See, the Pythagoreans used to think that everything in nature was mathematics, and that the sun obeyed mathematical laws, and that the stars obeyed mathematical laws, and that all the plants that are grown obey mathematical laws. So when you grow your tomatoes, my parents used to line the sunflowers up, because the magnetism of the sunflowers would actually point the photons at the tomatoes. So you actually lined the sunflowers along the east and the west in a row, and then the sun would shine from the west. It would shine over onto the tomatoes, and it would point the photons right at the tomatoes, so you would get better growth. But that might be socialism if you're in community with others and you're building a garden with them, and you're sharing information about how you can make the earth produce so that your form of life can be continued. So I think socialism is society in conjunction with other people, socializing under some kind of goal, art, filmmaking, some conception where you all have a skill and you all have something that you really like, and you build the form of your existence together and you share the resources of it.